Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
You expect betrayal from enemies, not from someone who shares your bed, your memories, and your last name. My name is Callum Dreyer, and I'm the kind of guy who doesn't ask for much. Give me peace, fresh air, and a little space to think, and I'm good. I've never been flashy. Never chased money or power. I like to work with my hands, fix what's broken, and keep my promises, especially to the people I love. Which is exactly why what happened with Renee hit me so damn hard. We were married 13 years. 13 quiet, ordinary, mostly good years. We lived outside Bozeman, Montana, in a cedar-shingled house I renovated myself. Renee ran a little boutique in town, soaps, handmade candles, local art, the kind of place that drew tourists and wealthy retirees with too much time. She loved that shop. Loved to talk about color palettes and display windows like they were sacred. And I listened. I always listened, because I thought that's what marriage meant. You show up. You care. You support. And for the longest time, I believed she did the same for me. Then my father died. We weren't close in that Hallmark movie kind of way, but we understood each other. He was a practical man, not big on hugs, but always the guy who showed up with jumper cables when your battery died. When he passed, he left behind a 67-acre property near Flathead Lake, dense woodland, a quiet creek, an old cabin my grandfather built with his bare hands. It was beautiful, wild, sacred. And in his will, he left it to me, solely me. I was still reeling from the funeral when Renee brought up the land. At first, it was casual. Are you going to build something on it? Or just let it sit like your dad did? Then it got more pointed. It's a lot of land to manage on your own, Cal. You might want to think about how it could benefit both of us. The taxes alone could choke us if we're not smart. I told her I hadn't decided. That I wanted to keep it in the family. Preserve it. And then one night, out of nowhere, she walks into the kitchen holding a manila folder and 2 glasses of wine. I talked to a CPA. He says if we shift the title into both our names and run it through the shop's LLC, we could use the land for tax write-offs. It's smart. Legal. Efficient. I hesitated. The cabin was my father's pride. That land was my childhood. Something in me recoiled at the idea of wrapping it up in tax shelters and boutique business schemes. But I didn't want to be the stubborn husband who resists progress. And Renee, she was so calm. So convincing. She wasn't asking for anything wild, just co-ownership. For the sake of simplicity. She put her hand on my chest and said, "We're building a life together, Cal. This isn't about me. It's about us." So, like a fool, I signed. She kissed me, told me I was doing the right thing, and poured another glass of wine. And I didn't think about it again. Not until weeks later, when I drove out to the land and found a muddy pickup truck parked at the edge of the clearing. It wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. And it damn sure didn't belong to anyone in our family. I knocked on the truck's window and saw a face I hadn't seen in 2 years, Damien, Renee's brother. The walking disaster. Damien was the kind of guy who couldn't hold a job longer than a haircut. He sold knives door to door, started a cryptocurrency blog that went bankrupt in 3 months, and once borrowed $5,000 from Renee to launch a mushroom farm, which, shocker, never materialized. And yet here he was. Standing on my land? In my father's boots, no less. "Oh hey, Cal, didn't know you were coming out here today. Renee said it'd be a while before you were up this way." I just stared at him. "Renee said what?" He shifted awkwardly. "Well, you know. Since the transfer. She thought it was best if I got a head start on clearing the south corner for the trailers." Trailers? Transfer? What the hell was he talking about? I left without a word. Got in my truck and drove straight back to Bozeman. Renee wasn't home, but her laptop was on the counter, open. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But something in my gut was screaming at me to find the truth. And there it was. A PDF of a sale agreement. Dated 2 weeks earlier. Renee had sold the land, my land, to Damien. For $14,000. No notice. No discussion. No damn permission. She forged my initials. She filed it through a third-party title company. She used the LLC she created years ago for her shop as a shell. It was all dressed up to look legal. It wasn't. My chest tightened. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was theft. Fraud. A heist with wedding rings and wine glasses in the face of someone I thought I knew. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the garage with the door half open, staring at the old canoe my dad made when I was 8. The wood was cracking now. The paint had faded. But it had outlasted him. And maybe even me. I knew right then, Renee didn't just take my land. She buried the man who gave it to me, then put a price tag on his memory. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. They say if you sit in silence long enough, you'll hear what your gut's been trying to tell you for weeks. That night in the garage, with nothing but the cold and the creak of wind outside, I heard mine loud and clear. She's been planning this for months. This wasn't impulsive. Renee didn't wake up one morning and think, I'll steal Cal's land today. No. This was orchestrated. Thought out. Filed and folded through just enough loopholes to look like a legal sleight of hand instead of what it really was, fraud, plain and simple. And the worst part? She looked me in the eye. Slept next to me. Said, I love you. All while moving pieces behind my back. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't flip the kitchen table or scream like some betrayed husband in a made-for-TV drama. No, I sat down and wrote a list. 3 columns. 1. What I know. 2. What I need to prove. 3. What she doesn't know I know. First thing next morning, I called Evan Rockland, an old friend of my dad's who practiced estate law out of Helena. I hadn't talked to him since the funeral. I didn't even know if he still took clients. But when I told him the basics, he cleared his schedule. Bring everything. Copies. Originals. Emails. Any trace of a signature you never gave. I told Renee I had to drive to Missoula for a supplier meeting. She didn't blink. Just kissed my cheek and told me to grab more of that fancy trail mix she liked from the co-op. 30 minutes into my meeting with Evan, he sat back, exhaled, and said, She's clever. But not clever enough. She hadn't just forged my initials. She'd submitted a limited power of attorney form to the title company, one I never signed. Worse, she'd used an expired notary stamp from a friend of hers who used to work at a bank, something the title company hadn't caught because they'd rushed the paperwork through during a holiday week. Evan leaned forward, tapping the manila folder with his pen. This isn't just unethical, Cal. This is criminal. If we file this right, we can get the sale reversed and hit her with enough charges to keep her out of real estate for life. But you need to decide how loud you want this to be. That gave me pause. I didn't want tabloid drama. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted truth. I wanted accountability. And more than anything, I wanted to look her in the eyes one day and know that she knew I saw everything. That I didn't fall apart. That I'd built a smarter storm than hers. So we got to work. Over the next 2 weeks, I played dumb. I kissed her goodnight. I helped her carry crates of soy candles to her shop's spring fair booth. I smiled through dinners with her friends. I nodded politely while she told me how. Sales were finally picking up again. Meanwhile, Evan filed a formal motion to place a temporary freeze on the property deed. It wouldn't alert her, not right away. It would quietly block Damien from making any construction moves or resale attempts until the motion passed through the county assessor's office. Then I started digging into Renee's digital trail. I'd never been a tech guy, but grief and betrayal turn you into all kinds of things. I found emails to Damien. Dozens. Subject lines like, "We'll get Cal to sign by Friday. Don't worry, I've got the POA form covered. If this works, we're set for the Airstream plan." Airstream plan? It turns out, Renee and Damien had been planning to turn the land into a short-term luxury glamping site. Think yurts, solar showers, overpriced firewood bundles, all marketed to wealthy weekenders from Seattle. They were already designing the website. Had a name picked out. Wildwood Retreat. It made me sick. This land, my father's land, was never about profit. It was about legacy. About preserving a piece of quiet in a world that's always yelling. And she wanted to pave it over with outdoor yoga decks and couples hammocks. I printed everything. Emails. Timelines. Even their terrible Wix homepage draft. I didn't care how much ink it took. Because now, I wasn't just going to reverse the sale. I was going to bury the lie with a paper trail 10 times deeper than the one she tried to hide. But there was one final step before I made my move. I needed to know something only she could tell me. So I waited. Waited until a Sunday morning, when we were both making breakfast. She was in her robe, barefoot, humming some indie band she'd heard at the shop. And I asked, calm as anything, "Hey, whatever happened with that land transfer? Did the tax stuff ever go through?" She didn't even flinch. "Still processing," she said, flipping a pancake. "Bureaucracy, you know how it is." She lied. Right to my face. Flawlessly. And in that moment I knew. She deserved to lose everything. They say karma moves slow. I disagree. When you've got the right documents, the right lawyer, and the truth on your side, karma hits like a freight train. About a week after I watched Renee lie to my face in the kitchen, Evan called me. "We got the freeze approved." Just like that. The county placed a legal hold on any development, sale, or leasing related to the Flathead property. No movement. No paperwork. No construction permits. Nothing. What that meant in plain English, Damien's little Airstream dream. Dead in the water. And they had no idea yet. I sat on that knowledge like a loaded gun, waiting for the moment it would fire. It didn't take long. 3 days later, I came home from a client meeting and found Renee pacing in the living room, phone pressed so tight to her ear it looked like she might crush it. "I don't know why it's delayed, Damien. I already called the county, they just said it's under review. What the hell does that even mean?" She didn't even lower her voice when I walked in. She just turned her back and whispered harshly into the phone, the way people do when they think silence will cover intent. I stood there, keys still in my hand, staring at her. She caught my eye for a second, just one flicker, and I saw it. Panic. She hung up fast, tossed her phone on the couch, and said something like, "Stupid supplier issue. Nothing important." But it was already happening. By the end of the week, the county assessor's office sent a formal letter, not to Renee, but to Damien, notifying him that the title transfer was under legal dispute. That no action could be taken until further verification of signatures, authorizations, and conflict of interest documents. It was a polite way of saying, "We're on to you." That was when Damien showed up at our house. I hadn't seen him since the day I caught him on the land. This time, he pulled up in some dusty SUV with an "Off-Grid Life" bumper sticker and walked to our porch like he owned the place. Renee tried to intercept him, but I was already opening the door. He gave me that smug, frat boy grin I always hated. "Hey Cal, mind if I come in? We need to talk." I didn't move. "What about?" "The land." "What land?" He hesitated. For the first time, I saw uncertainty behind his eyes. "Flathead. You know. Look, I don't know what kind of strings you pulled, but this freeze is screwing up my timeline. I've got contractors waiting. Payments made. We're both adults, let's be real here. You weren't using the land anyway. You signed off on it." I crossed my arms. "You sure about that?" He blinked. Frowned. Looked toward Renee, who was watching from inside like a ghost at the edge of a horror film. "What are you trying to do, man?" I smiled. "Correct a mistake." He tried to talk tough, threatened lawyers, said he'd go public if we didn't. Back off. I didn't say another word. Just stood there, arms crossed, until he ran out of noise and left. That night, Renee didn't speak to me. She just sat on the couch with her laptop, clicking furiously, eyes darting. She was scrambling, and it showed. And that's when she made her first mistake. She logged into her old email, the one she used before we merged our finances, the one she thought I'd forgotten existed, and sent an email to someone named Brent Holbrook. I recognized the name. He was a real estate broker in Kalispell. Renee had gone to college with him. The email said, "We may need to move fast. If you can list under my LLC within 48 hours, I'll give you 5% over standard commission. Can't afford another block from Cal." She didn't realize her account was still synced to the iMac in my workshop. I read every word. Now it was official. She wasn't just a liar. She was still trying to move the land behind my back, after the freeze. It was all I needed. The next morning, I handed everything to Evan. Emails. Documents. Printouts. He smiled grimly and said, "This is more than enough. We're going to court." But first, I had one more card to play. I contacted a local reporter I knew from the Bozeman Chronicle, a guy named Levi Trask, who once interviewed my dad about wilderness preservation projects in the region. Levi was sharp, ethical, and most importantly, didn't like scammers. I gave him the outline. I showed him the forged documents, the business pitch deck for Wildwood Retreat, and the sale between spouses without mutual consent. He said, "If even half of this checks out, they're toast." We agreed to keep my name anonymous, for now. But Levi started digging. And I knew once that story hit print, Renee and Damien wouldn't just lose the land. They'd lose their reputations, their credibility, and with enough luck, their freedom. The storm was rolling in. They just didn't see the clouds yet. I woke up that morning to the smell of coffee and the sound of Renee humming in the kitchen. It almost felt normal. Like the way things were before I knew. Before I understood what she was capable of. She handed me a cup and kissed my forehead like she always did, calm, confident, like a woman in control. Like someone whose lies were still safe beneath the surface. But I already knew what she didn't. That by noon, her name would be in every inbox in Bozeman. The article dropped at 11:47 a.m. sharp. Levi Trask didn't hold back. Local business owner implicated in fraudulent land deal, county investigation underway. He was careful, no outright accusations. Just facts. Documented, confirmed public record facts. A land transfer between spouses with no verifiable consent. A forged POA document with an expired notary. A business LLC funneling real estate sales in violation of zoning ordinances. An upcoming civil case filed by the legal heir of the property. He didn't name me directly, but anyone with half a brain could connect the dots. By 12:30, my phone buzzed nonstop, texts from neighbors, old clients, even the contractor who installed our windows 3 years ago. Not one of them sounded surprised. Just disappointed. And by 1 p.m., the shop's Yelp page had 3 new 1-star reviews. Renee hadn't seen the article yet. I watched from the porch as she walked to her car, dressed for work in that little olive green coat she always wore when she wanted to. Look polished but not like she's trying too hard. She paused, phone in hand, probably scrolling social media. Then she froze. I saw it hit her, the shift in posture, the sudden stillness in her breath. She turned around slowly, walked back inside, and dropped her purse without saying a word. "Is this you?" she asked, holding out the screen. It was Levi's article. Full screen. Bold title. Everything laid bare. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. "You went to the press?" she asked again, louder this time. "No," I said calmly. "The press came to the truth." She scoffed. Then laughed, that short, dry, defensive kind of laugh people do when they realize they're cornered. "You're really going to burn down everything over a piece of land?" That was the moment I saw it, the shift. The mask cracked. The charm, the confidence, the performance, gone. What was left wasn't some criminal mastermind. It was a woman scrambling to protect what little she thought she still controlled. "You lied," I said. "You forged my signature. You sold something that didn't belong to you. And you did it with a smile on your face." She started pacing. "Damien said the paperwork would hold. He said the title company wouldn't check." She stopped herself, bit her lip, looked away. It was the first time she'd let his name slip in context. Admitting knowledge, complicity, intent. "Thank you," I said. She narrowed her eyes. "For what?" "For confirming everything I needed. On the record." I stood up, walked past her, and left the house. Let her sit in it. Let her realize how far the floor had dropped out from under her. That afternoon, Evan filed a formal motion to rescind the transfer and seek damages, citing fraud, emotional harm, and unauthorized financial gain. The court granted a temporary protective injunction on the land until the hearing, meaning Renee and Damien were legally blocked from doing anything at all. At 4:12 p.m., Damien called me from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. His message? "You think you won, man? You don't know the system. People like me, we bounce back. Always do. You're just some carpenter with a temper. You'll lose." I saved the message. Let him talk. Because the truth was, I wasn't trying to win by force. I was winning with paper, silence, and patience. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. And I wasn't done yet. That night, as the town whispered, yelp burned, and Renee sat alone in her car in front of the shop she might soon lose, I began planning the final phase. I wasn't going to scream, or beg, or threaten. I was going to finish what she started. But do it the right way. Court isn't like it is in the movies. There's no dramatic yelling. No slamming of fists or gasps from the gallery. It's just paperwork, cold shares, and the soft click of someone typing everything you say into the official record. But beneath all that stillness, it's war. We sat on opposite sides of the room. Renee in a slate-gray blazer I'd never seen before. Hair pulled tight, lips pressed even tighter. Damien wasn't with her. He'd hired separate counsel and filed for a continuance. Smart. Cowardly, but smart. Her attorney was a real piece of work, Clayton Evermore, the kind of man who charges by the breath. Slit-back silver hair, a Rolex with more diamonds than time, and a voice like he thought everyone in the room was a waiter. "We assert," he said, flipping through his notes like they bored him, "that the signature in question was Mr. Keller's, and if he now wishes to rescind it, he may do so only through standard civil procedure, not under accusation of fraud." Evan leaned toward me and whispered, "He's going to argue you changed your mind. That you regret it, not that you were tricked." We were ready. When it was Evan's turn, he stood slow, deliberate. Not a showman, just a man with the weight of evidence on his side. "Your Honor, we will provide, under oath, that my client did not sign, authorize, or consent to the transfer. We will also provide metadata proving the document in question was fabricated using an expired notary ID, then sent digitally from the defendant's personal email to the title agency." He paused, then set a stack of color-coded files in front of the judge. "Exhibit B3 shows a PDF editing log, timestamps included, where the defendant manipulated a digital scan of my client's signature taken from an unrelated form filed 6 months earlier. She copy-pasted it." That was the first time Renee's mask broke in court. Just for a second. Her eyes darted sideways. Her jaw twitched. And I could see it in her hands, that same nervous fidget I'd seen when she was hiding something years ago. Twisting her wedding ring. Only now, there wasn't a ring. The judge looked through the documents, expression unreadable. Then Evan brought out the emails. The ones from the synced desktop. The ones she never knew I saw. "Your Honor, Exhibit D contains private communication between the defendant and a known third-party beneficiary, Mr. Damien Mott, in which they discuss a business plan that was contingent on the illegal transfer of the plaintiff's property. They refer directly to manipulating the paperwork, and even outline contingencies in case of pushback." Renee's lawyer objected, but it was weak, procedural at best. The judge allowed it in. And just like that, the entire intent of the fraud was officially on the record. But I wasn't done yet. Evan asked for permission to call me as a witness during the pre-trial discovery session. Renee looked stunned, like she genuinely hadn't expected me to speak. I stood. Hands steady. Voice calm. I didn't sign that paper. I never gave Renee permission to sell the land. I found out by accident, and when I asked her directly, she lied. I have proof that she knew exactly what she was doing, and I believe she used my trust, as her husband, to take something she couldn't earn. I looked her straight in the eyes as I said it. This wasn't a mistake. It was a betrayal. The room was silent. Not out of drama, out of discomfort. The kind that hangs heavy when someone tells a truth that can't be denied. After court adjourned, she followed me into the hallway. You didn't have to go that far, she said, voice low. Didn't I? I was trying to save us, she said. That land, it was wasted sitting there. Damien had ideas. Yeah, I interrupted. He had you. That's all he needed. She didn't respond. Just stood there, blinking back something she wasn't brave enough to say. So I left. The next step was official mediation, and if that didn't work, a full trial. But it didn't matter. We'd exposed everything. Her defense was gone, her story in pieces. Her business was struggling, public trust shattered. She'd underestimated one simple thing. I didn't want revenge. I wanted her to live inside the truths she built. And now she had to. The letter came in an envelope that still smelled like her perfume. It was hand-delivered by a courier. No email, no text, no phone call. Just a thick ivory card with my name written in her careful, almost too perfect handwriting. Cal, please. Just read. R. I almost tossed it. But I didn't. Inside was a folded check, made out to me, for $320,000. Exactly the assessed value of the land? And a short note. You said I never earned it. So here. I'm buying back my dignity. If you drop the suit, this is yours. No more fighting. Let's end this before it gets worse for both of us. The words were cold. Almost professional. But I could hear her in them, that tone she used whenever she was scared but pretending not to be. Like a kid trying to negotiate bedtime. She was desperate. That same night, I got a voicemail from her attorney. My client is willing to settle out of court with a full payment equivalent to your land's market value, plus closing costs. In exchange, you sign a non-disclosure agreement and agree to drop all legal claims, including damages. You walk away with cash. This ends now. I sat with that offer for hours. Anyone else would have said yes. I could have paid off the house, taken a trip, opened that second workshop I always dreamed of, moved to Wyoming and started clean. But that check wasn't about justice. It was a bribe in soft handwriting. I didn't want the money. I wanted the truth to stay public. I wanted her to feel what it's like to lose something real, something you don't get back with a pen and a promise. So I said no. Politely. Firmly. The next day, her lawyer emailed mine. Client rescinds offer. Advises we proceed to trial. Fine by me. But something changed after that. Renee stopped showing up in person. She missed a hearing. Then two. Eventually, her attorney filed to withdraw from representation, citing irreconcilable disagreements. Evan looked at me one morning over coffee and said, She's unraveling, Cal. And she was. Quietly. In the background. No grand collapse, no fiery explosion, just small cracks in her world. Her boutique stopped posting on social media. Yelp reviews got uglier. She changed her phone number. Then her address. Rumor was Damien had gone back to Nevada. Word around Kalispell was he left town owing a contractor $20,000 for unbuilt dreams. And the best part? The land stayed mine. The freeze was permanent now. The title reversion official. The court recognized me as the sole legal owner, and her LLC dissolved under investigation. But it wasn't about ownership anymore. It was about the fact that when she tried to buy her way out, I didn't blink. I still kept the check though. Not to cash. Just a frame. A reminder of what happens when you try to price tag betrayal. People always say you don't see betrayal coming. That's not true. You do. You just lie to yourself until it's standing in your kitchen, forging your name on a deed. I used to believe Renee was the smartest person I'd ever met. Not book smart, something deeper. Like she could read a room in seconds and know exactly what to say to get what she wanted. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She just shaped reality to fit her needs. And I let her. For years I thought I was the quiet one. The grounded one. The simple man who didn't ask too many questions, because love meant trust, and trust meant silence. But trust isn't silence. It's risk. And she weaponized it. The line she crossed wasn't just legal. It wasn't even about the land, not really. It was about the day she looked me in the eyes and decided I was nothing but an obstacle. A signature. A formality she could work around. I still remember the day I knew, really knew, she was gone. Not physically. Not even emotionally. Just gone. It was a Tuesday. We were eating dinner. She was scrolling through her phone like always. And I said, "Did you talk to the bank today?" We were refinancing the roof loan. Or at least I thought we were. She said, "Yeah. It's all taken care of." But the thing is, I'd already called the bank that morning. She never spoke to them. Not once. She lied to my face. Over chicken stir-fry. Like it was a grocery list. That was the first cut. The land deal was just the last one. Now that it's all over, people ask me if I'd do it differently. If I'd let her walk away with the money. If I'd taken the check. If I'd swallowed my pride and avoided the mess. The answer is no. Because she needed to learn, not just that what she did was wrong, but that some men don't fold. Some men don't sell their silence. Some men will take the slow road, the painful one, just to make sure truth gets its say. And here's the part one never told anyone. One night, months later, I saw her again. At a gas station off I-90, halfway to Missoula. She was pumping gas into a rusted Toyota she would have mocked a year ago. Hoodie pulled low. No wedding ring. No makeup. No power. She saw me. I saw her. Neither of us said a word. But I think we both understood something in that moment. She lost more than I did. Because I walked away with my name. My land. My story. And she? She walked away with the memory of who she used to be. Before she crossed the line.